All right, now that you are done looking at propaganda, we're going to continue on looking at this aspect of persuasion versus manipulation. And now we're going to look at logical fallacies, which you probably didn't go over in your history class. Logical fallacies and traps. The credibility of an argument doesn't only depend on its use of persuasion, but also the legitimacy of an argument. Logical fallacies and propaganda go hand in hand. Fallacies are a common tactic used in propaganda to create a biased and misleading understanding of the issue. Propaganda is the tool to persuade. A fallacy is the flaw in logic that leads the viewer to be persuaded. So up top, we have persuasion. That's ethos, logos, pathos, using those appeals. Then under pathos, we have propaganda techniques. And under propaganda techniques, we have logical fallacies. They all kind of go hand in hand. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that renders an argument invalid. So if you have 2 is a number, 1 is a number, so that must mean 2 is 1, right? No. That's a logical fallacy. Just because 2 and 1 are both numbers doesn't mean that they equal each other. So in the next few slides, we have examples of logical fallacies. As we go through these examples of logical fallacies on slides 4 through 15, you're going to complete your note taker. Oops, and that should totally say 4 through 15. And we're just going to correct this as we go here today. So that first one was on slide 2 and 3. And then the rest of these will be looking at logical fallacies. That's going to go up there. All right. Whoops. So we're going to look at different types of logical fallacies on slides 4 through 15. And you're going to write one example of a logical fallacy in a short sentence or 2. Let's take a look at the first one, and then I'll set you guys on your own to do the rest of them. The first one is an ad hominem. It's when you attack an opponent's character in an attempt to undermine the argument. So if you look over here, we've got the definition. Up here, we've got the term. And then right here, we have an example. We've got the 3 little bears here. This one says, "Why do you keep eating my porridge?" And then she said, "How about I start listing all of your bad habits?" What she says has nothing to do with what he says, but she is attacking his character to debate, to kind of get him to go against what he's saying and to kind of forget about it. That's ad hominem. That is not a good thing to do. That is a logical fallacy. Pause the video and write your example. The next one is an anecdotal fallacy, using personal experiences or isolated examples to disprove evidence. How to make, so here's my first example, how to make a scientist's head explode. Anecdotal evidence isn't valid. Yes, it is. I want to use an anecdote as evidence, and later it turned out I was right. She is using anecdotal evidence to prove him wrong, but it has nothing to do with what they're saying. So it's when you use a personal experience to disprove evidence. So it's like when somebody says, "Hey, one time I went to go get the flu shot, and then afterwards I got the flu." That's an anecdote to disprove science. It's physically impossible to get the flu from the flu shot, but people are using anecdotes to prove it wrong. Pause the video and write your own example. Appeal to authority. Accepting the word of authorities when we lack good reason for thinking that they have the information we need, or when the authority in question is not really an expert in a relevant area. So over here we've got a little chimp peculiarity. I can't say that word right now. That's okay. Professor Chimp, the world's most distinguished living chemist, is often quoted about matters of fidelity. So he's a chemist and he's talking about fidelity. That would be like if I got up here and I'm an English teacher and I started teaching you all about math and I told you how great of a math teacher I was. I have no authority in math. I can't do that. That's a logical fallacy if I start saying that I'm good at math even though I'm an English teacher. Pause the video and write your own example of a logical fallacy that is an appeal to authority. Appeal to emotion, manipulating an emotional response in place of a valid or compelling argument. So this one is where you take emotion and you just use emotion instead of any facts or statistics. We've got a logical fallacy right here in front of you. That's an appeal to emotion. And it says up top, sudden infant death syndrome, up to 60% of immune system destroyed. Notice we have no idea what this advertisement is for. We have no idea what this is warning us against. For all we know, it could be don't inject poison into your baby. And then it just lists all of these different things that could go wrong. There's no facts. There's no statistics. We don't know what this is about. All we know is all these bad things could happen to your baby. That is a logical fallacy because it only appeals to your emotions. It's got nothing else. Pause the video and write your own example. Number 8, bandwagon fallacy, appealing to popularity or the fact that many people do something as form of validation. Why don't you want to wear a party hat when everyone else is wearing a party hat? That thing that everybody's mom says is, well, if all of your friends jumped off of a bridge, would you jump off of a bridge? It has nothing to do with what you were previously saying, what you were previously talking, nothing. It's just, are you going to join the crowd or are you not going to join the crowd? That is a bandwagon fallacy. Go ahead and pause the video, write your own example. Slide 9, black or white fallacy, false dichotomy. Two alternative states that are presented as the only possibilities when in fact more possibilities do exist. There are only two types of people in the world. Those who think false dichotomies and penguins. Those two things don't relate. So if I said, like, you have two choices right now. Either you could take notes on logical fallacies or you can stub your toe. Those two things don't relate. There is nothing that relates about those two things. There's no comparison. There's no logic. That is a logical fallacy. There is no logic. Slide number 10, burden of proof fallacy. Saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with the opponent to disprove. So up here, we have conventional logic. There's no logical fallacy up here. Sometimes I turn into a unicorn. Oh yeah? Prove it. Okay, you're right. The burden of proof is on the person who turns into a unicorn. Down here, we have shifting the burden of proof. The guy in the yellow says, sometimes I turn into a unicorn. The guy in the green says, oh yeah, prove it. And then the guy in the yellow says, you can't prove that I don't. That's shifting the burden of proof. The burden of proof should be on the guy in the yellow because he said he could turn into a unicorn. But the guy in the yellow shifts it to the guy in the green. That's shifting the burden of proof. Pause this video and write your own example. All right, 5 more here. Common sense fallacy. Arguing that because something makes sense, it must be so. It just does not make sense to waste taxpayers' money this way. Just saying that it doesn't make sense not to do something. Like, it doesn't make sense not to do your homework. It doesn't make sense not to buy a yearbook. It doesn't make sense not to set your alarm in the morning. It doesn't make sense not to hop on one foot and do the hokey pokey. That's the common sense fallacy. You're just saying it doesn't make sense not to. Pause the video and write your example. Number 12, false cause fallacy. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. I don't really know how to say all that. I don't know if I said it right, but whatever. Labeling one thing as the cause of another thing on insufficient or unprecedented evidence. Everybody who went to the moon has eaten chicken. Good grief. Chicken makes you go to the moon. False cause. Think about your example and write it down. Pause before you go to the next slide. Non sequitur. When what is presented as evidence or reason is irrelevant to the conclusion. well, if we get rid of all of our cows, then we have to walk everywhere, and that would be terrible for morale. Therefore, cow emissions are not killing our planet. It doesn't line up. Your conclusion is irrelevant. What you said doesn't make sense. Pause this video and write your own example. Number 14, slippery slope fallacy, asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z will ultimately happen. Therefore, we should not do A. If you let a bully come in your front yard, he will be on your porch the next day, and the day after that, he will eat your babies. That doesn't make sense. That's not a logical follow-up. If I said, if you don't do your homework today, then you will fail English, and you will have blue hair. The first two did make sense, but it doesn't lead to the blue hair, and you don't know how that person got there. Pause this video and write your own example of a slippery slope fallacy. Finally, strawman fallacy, misrepresenting an opponent's position to make it easier to attack. How to win an argument against science. Yikes, I can't fight that, but I have an idea. Almost done. Much better. So he takes this big, rough guy and makes him small and meaningless and easier to attack. So this is where you take something and you misrepresent it. You give it alternate facts. So if you said that you don't want to do your homework, homework is that big green guy right there. He's robust, he's there, it's kind of hard. But then if you go home and you tell your mom and dad, oh, mom, dad, it's just busy work, it means nothing. You're misrepresenting that homework, and that is the straw man fallacy. Go ahead and stop this video, write your last example, and then you are going to go ahead and find a partner in the room or online, however you want to do it, and you are going to complete the Unit 4 Lesson 2 Logical Fallacy activity.